My prediction for 2022 is we're going to see the trend for individual social platforms to keep building up these walled gardens around all of their data to try and attract the brands and creators that are crucial to the success of their platform. We've seen it with Spotify, we've seen it with TikTok, we've seen Twitter making plays in the creator economy as well. That's going to continue. The impact on brands in particular is going to stay really hard to kind of join up your data across all of your platforms. So any workflows, tools that you have that can join up that data and give you a complete picture of what's going on all the social platforms when it relates to your brands and the sort of the conversation around your key topics is going to be absolute gold dust. That's only going to get more true in 2022.
So one of the big trends we're seeing in influencer marketing here at OST is that senior execs are realizing they don't just have to be present on social, they need to have an opinion. They need to be saying something meaningful and building their own following. So in 2022, we're expecting this trend to continue, senior execs to be integrated more into influencer programs and to be becoming full advocates for their brands.
Influencer marketing in 2022, we're going to see a shift from tactical to long-term. We're going to see influencers working with less brands on longer-term projects. It's going to be the year of the creator. Influencers are going to be using their personal voices, their ways of working. They're going to be connecting more into the strategies of these organizations to bring content to life to their channels in a deeply authentic way.
So we've all seen content marketing become more collaborative over the years, but in 2022, including collaborators and influencers in your content isn't going to be a nice to have. It's going to become table stakes. We are moving into a post-single point of view era for content marketing. In other words, if you don't have a collaborative format with influencers and other points of view included, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Time to step it up.
I think the biggest difference we're going to see in 2022 is a movement from using influencers to create content to using influencers to drive sales. What I mean by that is that influencers can be used to be integrated within sales calls, within sales meetings, within sales conferences in such a way that we're going to be bringing value to the overall engagement process at a time when sales are in the balance.
Shared values such as diversity and representation create trusted relationships. Much like consumers care greatly about the brands they choose standing for something, influencers likewise will be looking for aligned values from the brands they partner with on programming in 2022.
B2B brands will hop on the live streaming bandwagon, will hop more and more on the podcasting bandwagon. And we see that already, right? All kinds of B2B brands are producing podcasts. It is a fantastic way to show your human side. It is much easier to connect like this with people as opposed to, me writing something up, then it goes through 15 approval processes, and it's so watered down by the time somebody reads it. That's not building a human connection. This is.
In 2022, we'll begin to see B2B companies understand that they cannot work with influencers in a functional one-way direction. They need to develop long-term relationships with influencers that are give and take. So they may want to co-create content with those influencers, whether it's guest blog posts, it's podcasts, or it's video interviews, so that when they do have a campaign that they want to work with influencers on, it's not just a functional one-way relationship. Instead, it's a long-term developed relationship.
In 2022, I predict that B2B leaders will see contributing to and engaging in online conversations as integral to their roles. They'll rely less on communications teams or paying outside influencers, and instead do the work themselves of building and amplifying their influence. This sort of more authentic social capital means better leadership platforms, much more powerful and effective, and their organizations will hugely benefit.
Influencers will be held accountable for business results. What gets measured gets done. The influencers that you bring into your organization, how do they help your organization get better? What metrics do you hold your organization and the influencer to? Is it time per hire? Is it talent pipeline development? Is it cost per hire? These are the metrics that now allow you to gauge whether or not the influencer and your organization is getting better over time.
The marketing executives will be more selective in collaborating with influencers. They will realize that they will get a bigger return by working with influencers who are subject matter experts, who are more engaging with more authentic and innovative contents. B2B influencer marketing will shift from event and campaign-driven to an ongoing engagement with more innovative, creative, engaging contents through omni-channels.
I feel like you're going to see much more longer-term partnerships where an influencer is kind of locked into a brand over the course of a year or multiple years. But I can also see some B2B influencers kind of becoming full-time creative directors, marketing directors, content marketing directors, and managers within B2B companies, because I think a lot of B2B companies are really struggling to produce their own real engaging content, whereas the influencers in the B2B space, that's what they do. And so I can see a lot more of that coming together in 2022.
I think value alignment will still be a key driver for partnerships going forward. It is crucial that we collaborate with brands and employee advocates who share similar values and vision that we do. That makes the messaging that much stronger and more authentic.
In 2022, I think we're finally going to see that shift from those one-off efforts to the more collaborative approaches, and have influencer marketing truly shift to that influencer relations mentality. But in order to make this really happen, we need to stop thinking of it as that linear approach that produces the do this and everything will happen mentality. Instead, we need to look at it like technology, where there's that 360-degree, every piece of the puzzle matters and should touch one another and reinforce one another in order to make the biggest impact. So in 2022, that's what I'm hoping happens. I'm hoping we see that linear approach shift to a more collaborative 360-degree approach, where each piece, each influencer, and each effort reinforce one another.
Credibility and trust are paramount for the year ahead, and that means B2B brands need to think about 3 focuses for the year: creating deep, meaningful, buyer-focused content, developing strong influencer and creator relationships for really genuinely valuable content, and then building the brand not through a big splash, but actually through a nudge-nurture approach. With those 3 things, business impact will be better and of greater interest. It will encourage referrals and hopefully more conversions, and yet sales.
As an influencer, I tell stories. I tell brand stories and really shape such stories in a way that everybody can understand their message, despite how technical it might be or not. It's about capturing that audience and making them believe. And I really do think that will happen with B2B. That similar adoption will happen with B2B influencers, where businesses will no longer sell as such, but tell each other's stories for their audience to buy into their products and services.
One of the things I see happening in 2022 is the greater personalization of brand messaging. And by this I mean using technologies such as augmented reality and meta worlds, meta universes to tell a brand story and to actually allow brands to plant themselves into alternative worlds and experiences for end users, customers and clients.
In 2020, I coined the phrase competence is the new influence. And that trend will continue in 2022, where large brands prefer competence as influence for their message.
In 2022, I hope we clarify the ideal role of influencers in the B2B marketing mix. The uncertain business climate in recent years has shifted expectations for B2B influencers. Now, companies often tend to emphasize lead generation rather than natural influencer sweet spots like brand awareness and market education. Although lead generation should be a natural byproduct of influencer marketing, this can result in ad hoc, transactional campaigns rather than long-term strategic partnerships. But the B2B buying process is complex and involves multiple stakeholders, and the need for trusted high-value content is stronger in today's noisy market. So smart brands will rely on influencers more as independent expert voices rather than lead engines. When influencers are brand advocates, content co-creators, and ecosystem allies, qualified leads will follow. So sponsors that commit to long-term relationships will build a sustainable advantage.
There are three key trends that I see within the sector. One is diverting more content creation budget into employee-generated content and external influencer-generated content. This is going to allow your brand to tell stories in a much more inspiring way to influence your target audience. The second one is connecting up your influence marketing programs with ABM programs, analyst relations, social selling, and also employee advocacy. The third trend is how we describe influencers. I think the taxonomy will change from describing people as ambiguous influencers into event speakers, YouTubers, podcasters, independent analysts. Those terms are going to be much more mainstream as senior management and influence marketers have to get to grips with how important influencers are as part of their marketing journey.